Hello everybody and welcome back to Earth Spice, and A Dice movie reviews. My name's Paul and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that is coming out on Netflix. Now before we jump into all that, if you want to check out my other channel where I talk about true crime, go on and check it out. It's right here. It's called Reporting Live from a Sofa. Okay, so the new Chainsaw Massacre is coming to us in 2022, February 18th, I believe. So what I want to do particularly for this video is first I want to just talk about some of what we know about the film, all that kind of stuff, and then I want to watch and make some commentary on the trailer. Now, if you want to just watch the trailer all the way through without hearing me talk about it, it's down in the description. Just go watch it straight there. If you want to see me kind of talk about it, it's a very short trailer, so I just have some commentary to make on it. But like I said at first, I want to talk about the Chainsaw Massacre thing, that like what little we know about it. It's not sounding great for the franchise. Not that the franchise was like thriving to begin with, but you know, my history of Chainsaw Massacre is this is like a pinnacle movie for me. This was like when I was growing up, and I'm talking about the 1974 version. This was like the worst of the worst, right? Like this was a threshold. Once your parents were like, okay, you can watch that, it was like, okay, I must be grown up now. You know what I'm saying? So, and y'all, and it scared the bejesus out of me, right? So every one of them since then, but we'll talk about this in a little bit, has kind of been like, except for really one in my opinion. So there's that. So let's go ahead and just talk about what we know so far about this. So after nearly 50 years of hiding, Leatherface returns to terrorize a group of idealistic young friends who accidentally disrupt his carefully shielded world in a remote Texas town. The director is David Blue Garcia, and according to IMDb, he's an Emmy Award-winning director, cinematographer. He is based out of Austin. Apparently makes a living doing like television commercials, product videos, feature films. His first feature film, Tejano, it has world premiere at the Dallas International Film Fest in 2018. A guy named Mark Burnham will be playing Leatherface. Okay, now let's read some of the storylines according to IMDb. When I say some of them, there's like a couple that I put here that kind of paint a picture of what this is going to be about. The spiritual sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise takes place 47 years later. Ruth is a 25-year-old San Francisco moneymaker who drags her younger teenager sister with her to Texas on a business trip out of fear of leaving her alone in the city. The younger sister, Leela, is an amateur photographer who is wheelchair bound, and it's not long until they're fighting for their lives against a 60-year-old Leatherface. Like, you know, already right there, that whole thing right there, again, it's like this is serving like, you know, rinse and repeat vibes. And I'm not trying to trash it because I do remember watching the original one, and at that time it was like, oh my god, I cannot believe they did this to a guy in a wheelchair, right? It added a whole new level of horror. Okay, it's clearly not 1974 anymore, right? It's like a long time after that. So that's nothing new, and I'm not trying to reduce it down, but it's kind of like, okay, that device has been used a lot in the storyline, but nonetheless, I do think it's going to add like another layer to it of like, okay, well, how's this going to look? Now, in another little storyline from IMDb as well, it mentions, you know, more of the same story. It kind of goes into a little bit, and I'm just looking at my notes right here, you know, and it says that they disrupt the home of Leatherface, the deranged serial killer whose blood-soaked legacy continues to haunt the area's residents, including Sally Hardesty. Remember, this is the sole survivor from the original film, and she's hell-bent on seeking revenge. Okay, so now I've heard, like I'm like, you know, sitting here talking to the grapevine, I've read in a lot of places, whatever, that there is kind of this like vibe a little bit of like the new Halloween franchise that's come out, and that it's going like, okay, pretend nothing happened, this is the direct sequel, yada yada yada. Now, I've also read in some interviews where the director's like, no, well, we're throwing little tidbits in there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like, forget everything happened since part one. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we can, except for the dude from part two. I do love that character, and I don't know why I can't think of his name right now, but I'll put his picture up here. Okay, so before we get into watching the trailer, I just have to say a couple of the things about what I've read, what I'm seeing on IMDb. So basically, the test screenings for this movie have not been good, like at all. Okay, Like, literally, people are saying it's probably the worst entry in the franchise. You know, basically the only people that are saying good stuff are the people who have actually worked on the film, right? So these got such bad ratings, feedback, whatever. This is when Legendary Pictures was like, yeah, you know what? We're gonna sell this to Netflix, okay? Because I'll say this, at first, I was like this, I'm like, Netflix has put out some really good horror films, like exclusive things and movies. So I was like, okay, this is just a new way of doing things, right? So once I started looking into it more, what I'm saying is, at first, the fact that this is like direct to Netflix wasn't throwing me off until I looked into, oh, there's reasons behind it. Now, also, I'm kind of reading my little notes right here. The initial directors, Ryan and Andy Tohill, split from the project during the film's first week of production in Bulgaria. They were replaced with David Blue Garcia, and he basically scrapped it and reshot the previous footage, the whole 9 yards. Now, also on IMDb, it was alluded to that probably what happened is an integral part of the story was changed. They kind of changed the whole thing, and that these original dudes were like, no, we signed on for this story, so we're out, kind of a thing. So that's never a good look. So you can piece this together where it's like, okay, so this happened in the first week. Dude comes in, changes this up. We get to test showings. It's getting horrible feedback, except from like people who were in it and worked on it, probably their, you know, parents and friends and whatnot. So there's all that, okay? So let's go through the trailer, right? And just make some commentary on this. Okay, so for me, an integral part of the Chainsaw Massacre series is the iconic house, so I like seeing that part. When you do reboots like this, I'm very interested to see, well, what does the area still look like? Are we at the same house? What does that look like? What's been going on since the original, right? So this little clip here, I'm like, okay, here's allegedly the iconic house. It's decrepit looking. It's serving Chainsaw Massacre vibes, you know. So there's that. Let's look at the next part. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, the graphics that we're seeing for that, it almost, I mean, honestly, it kind of looks like a filter that I could use for these videos that, like, I make right here. You know what I mean? I was like, this is serving sci-fi. Now, of course, you go back to the 1974 horror legend thing. That's what they all do in here. They all have to reference that. Because, again, to me, the 1974 film is like what, it's just, it is the blueprint, okay? So they always have to reference that, but that whole thing to referencing that is no longer exciting to me. You know, not with this franchise. It doesn't do anything where I'm like, oh, yeah, we have to always reference that because that was the best one. Okay, so for this part, I'm like, why is the chainsaw hidden in the wall? Like, that part kind of throws me off. Like, what is that telling us? I mean, obviously it could be for dramatic sakes, but I'm assuming that this is somewhere from the film. So I'm just like, well, if he's been living normally and he's hiding the chainsaw on the wall, I mean, okay, like, what's the point of that? You know, I don't know, but again, we'll see. I mean, I'm just kind of being a little bit picky over that one, right? But then I'm also like, if he's been living normally this whole time, like, how does he live normally? Okay, remember in the last one that came out, where the 3D one, which that one was like really, really bad, y'all. I get where they were going with that, and that was almost like another kind of direct sequel or whatever. But where the way they had him hiding out, which was another family member was watching out after him, and it was like, family is everything. That's kind of how I envision him being able to hide out, but not like, well, I've just been going and working at the lumber yard and keeping a low profile. Okay, so full disclosure, the jump scare scenes that they just showed don't really do anything for me. They're pretty generic. There's nothing that's standing out. Sure, the floorboard thing is kind of interesting, but again, it's making me nervous, right? Because when I say making me nervous, I'm just like, this is your entry to show us, like, here's, it's been 22 years later, or however long later, he's been dormant, he returns, this is the horror legend, and I'm just like, even the trailer is just, it's not serving me anything that we haven't seen a bazillion times over in any film at this point. Okay, so again, he's holding the face mask thing up, so, it looks like a fresh face. So maybe, he's been dormant, he's come back, here it is, we're starting anew. Again, overall, the trailer it's very underwhelming. It makes me nervous. And because I always want to see this film do well. I want to see a reboot do well. I'm curious because here's my thing. The only one in this franchise, again, 1974 is, you don't get any better than that. But the 2003 reboot of it, and I actually have, where is it? How convenient, in my little toy collection right here. Thank you, right here. This one, right there. Y'all, that one was good. It wasn't as good as the first one for me, because that's my favorite one. But that one had the tension, it had all that going on in it, and I was like, okay, this one got to me. So many of the other ones, I'm not lying, y'all, they're like bad Sci-Fi Channel movies. And I'm just like, how did this franchise go to that? Like, they always try and redo it somehow, and it's never what it is. It's not even a decent sequel, right? And so with this one, just seeing this really, underwhelming trailer, hearing the context of it's getting horrible, previews and all this kind of stuff, all the turmoil with the production, they just sold it off to Netflix. I'm just like, ugh. Here's the thing. Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, all these franchises, all the stuff you see behind me, these franchises all have a built-in audience, right? So to me, I'm just like, okay, no, I don't want, to be pandered to as a fan. There's some things I look for, but I'm not somebody who I'm like, look, when they showed the iconic Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, the fourth board on the wall was different than the original. This movie sucks. Okay, I'm not like that at all, right? I want something new, but I also want to kind of feel like, we're going down memory lane, So, but there's also, this is my thing with it, don't break something that's not, or I'm sorry, don't try and reinvent the wheel, right? The whole thing about the original Chainsaw Massacre, the original Halloween, the original Friday the 13th, all this stuff, well, maybe not the original Friday the 13th, there wasn't a massive storyline behind these films, right? It was just like anonymous slaughter, okay? Especially Leatherface. That was just like this maniac family doing these horrific things. And again, I come back to this. When these films are shot on no budget with like people scraping together what they can to shoot them, it gives them this realistic vibe that you cannot ever recreate with money. It's like lightning will only strike once in that. So when you look at the original things of this, especially this franchise, that's why to me you just can't reinvent that. 2003 got to it, but it still had everyone look like a model. It was high production, high quality, but to me, it scared the mess out of me. Like that whole scene with the gun where he was making them put the gun in their mouth. Oh my God, I still can't watch that. The anxiety from it is just like triggering. But anyways, so with this one, I'm really crossing my fingers. Now here's the other thing. Am I going to be February 18th, 2022? God willing, am I going to be watching it? You damn straight, okay? I'll be one of the first ones on Netflix watching it. So there's that. But I just really hope they do the franchise justice. But so far, I'm like, anyways, I'm very curious to see what y'all think. I'm very curious to see if you are a Chainsaw Massacre fan. Even my horror fan friends that are into all that are like, I don't like Chainsaw Massacre. Do you like the franchise? If so, what's your favorite entry into it? Are you going to be glued to Netflix when this comes out? So that's it. I appreciate you watching, and until we go on another movie binge, I'll see you back here.